Hi, I'm BECMI Berserker and welcome to the second episode of my Let's Roll series, which focuses on the generation and progression of each core BECMI Dungeons and Dragons character class. If you don't know what BECMI is, I strongly recommend you watch my BECMI playlist, link on the screen, where I delve into many aspects of the game and make the case why I think it's the greatest version of the Dungeons and Dragons game. Before I continue with exploring the generation of a BECMI fighter, I also recommend those unfamiliar with BECMI to watch the first episode of this series exploring the generation of a cleric, as I used that video to introduce many rules, such as what prime requisites are, and also delving into the 3 alignments. In this video I will assume that you have watched that first video, so that I do not continuously go over old ground, so again please watch it if you haven't already. As I roll up a fighter, I will explore the character class as presented in the Rules Cyclopedia, released in 1991. Once generated, we will go up the levels, stopping here and there to examine how the class has progressed and what's changed. As I'm using the Rules Cyclopedia, I will be including the skills rules and the weapon mastery rules. Today we're going to look at generating the second character class we come across in the rules, and that is the fighter. We are told that the fighter's main ability is their skill in fighting. Obvious, I know, and that fighters often have greater strength than other characters, meaning they usually hit opponents more often in combat and inflict more damage. It is expected that fighters should act as the front line in combat. Fighters have a better chance of surviving physical damage since they can wear any armor and have more hit points than most other classes. A fighter is able to use any weapon, and when it comes to weapon mastery, gets more opportunities than any other class to improve their weapon knowledge. In addition to this, fighters have access to special fighting options at first level, such as setting a spear to receive a charge and using a lance from horseback, both of which have the potential to do double damage. Fighters gain more combat options from 9th level. High-level fighters can spend a lot of time clearing the wilderness and expanding their settlements, making good use of the Dominion and War Machine rules. In fact, they are one of only 2 classes that may build a stronghold at any level, as long as they can afford it. Well, that's the basics of a fighter when starting at first level, so let's roll. Here's the front half of my character sheet. Let's stick the important information about a fighter on the right here, so that we can refer to it as needed. The first bit of information we're told is that the fighter's prime requisite is strength, so I would want to ensure that score is my highest, to maximise the amount of experience points my character earns, as well as ensuring my fighter is effective in combat. Right, let's put the Dungeon Master's name here, and the class and level we're going to demonstrate. As we're looking at the fighter today, we can assume that the scores I rolled favoured that class, like so. I have to say I was very fortunate with these rolls. But that strength score of 17 is frustrating. I really want it to be an 18. Well, in BECMI there's a mechanism for that. Anyone wishing to improve their prime requisite can do so by trading 2 points from either their strength, intelligence or wisdom to raise their prime requisite by 1. This mechanism is only available for improving the prime requisite. In addition, any score lowered may not go below 9. So my fighter's prime requisite is strength. Let's see if I can raise that strength above 17. My fighter has an intelligence of 15. That certainly isn't necessary for dashing the brains of evil enemies. If I lower that intelligence score by 2, I can still have an intelligence score of 13 and raise my strength by 1, making it 18. Let's do it and edit these scores on the character sheet, like so. Excellent. Now my fighter is one of the strongest humans alive. Okay, so now it's time to work out the adjustments for each ability score. Let's get that chart on the screen. So I now get a +3 adjustment for my strength, but the adjustment for my intelligence remains +1, the same as it would have been if I left it at 15. So a worthy exchange then. Looking at my wisdom score, I get a +1, and I get a +1 for my dexterity and a +2 for my constitution. Both of these will come in handy in combat, as dexterity will help me avoid attacks, and constitution will increase my hit points. As for charisma, I get a -1 here. Perhaps my fighter is an unsavoury sort. I've got a picture building in my mind. Each of these adjustments will affect my character's interaction with the world, as described by the highlighted text. We won't get too much into these unless they specifically impact my fighter's generation, but I will immediately change my fighter's armor class, as that dexterity score of 13 will reduce it, which is a good thing, from a natural armor class of 9 to 8. Right, so my fighter is shaping up nicely, but how many hit points do they start with? Well, looking at the information in my table, a fighter's hit dice is 1d8. Going strictly by the BECMI rules, a character does not get maximum hit points at first level, so I roll my 1d8, but I get a maximum of 8. My dice are hot tonight. I add 2 to this roll because of my constitution adjustment, making my actual hit points a total of 10. Let's insert that number into the hit points box here. The next thing I need to do is add my fighter's saving throw scores to this sheet. In BECMI, saving throw scores are determined by class, as shown on this table, so all we need to do is transfer the numbers for level 1 onto my sheet. So Death Ray or Poison is 12, Magic Wands is 13, Paralysis or Turn to Stone is 14, Dragon Breath is 15, and Rod Staff or Spell is 16. Let's now turn to languages. As mentioned in my previous Let's Roll video, each character starts with at least some understanding of what's referred to as the common tongue. As you can see on this languages table, due to my fighter having an intelligence of 13, they have 3 languages. The first 2 of these will be Common and my fighter's alignment language, which I will elect to be Chaotic. My unsavoury fighter is going to be an untrustworthy brute. As for this third language, he's picked up a little Orcish whilst carrying out contracts for the wrong sort. You've got to speak with your business associates, even if you don't like them that much. So let's put those 3 languages on the sheet, as well as my fighter's alignment of Chaotic. Right, so my fighter is almost there in terms of the front half of this sheet. The combat section at the bottom is the same for all starting character classes and just relates to the number needed to hit a particular armor class. But my fighter has a +3 strength adjustment to hit in melee combat, and a +1 dexterity adjustment to hit with missile weapons. Let's amend this hit roll table to account for this. Of course, these numbers may be further impacted by magic or weapon mastery adjustments, and we'll pay more attention to this as the fighter levels. But for now, let's give my fighter a name. Let's use the one from the basic red box when introducing new players to this class, and call this fighter Fleetwood, together with the portrait offered in that set. There you go, meet Fleetwood. His portrait is perhaps a little at odds with his chaotic demeanour, so let's call him Fleetwood the Fallen. He's got issues. That's all you need to know. Okay, Fleetwood the Fallen is turning into an interesting character. Now it's time to turn over the sheet and insert some further details, specifically information regarding Fleetwood's fighter combat options. Let's look at these more closely before we move on. At first level, a fighter has 2 combat options that are only otherwise available to demi-humans. These are called Set Spear versus a Charge and a Lance Attack. Set Spear versus Charge is a special attack that may only be executed with a spear, polearm, sword shield or lance. The fighter must declare before any other actions that they are setting their spear in place to receive a charge. Obviously this is a bit of a gamble, as the fighter may not be charged, and a round of action potentially lost. However, if the fighter is charged by a creature that has travelled 20 feet or more to reach them, they may attack during their enemy's movement phase before the enemy can make their own attack. A successful attack by the fighter means that they have hit with their set spear, dealing double damage to their foe plus any strength and magical adjustments. This could result in the enemy being killed before they have been able to resolve their own attack, even if they had won the initiative. Obviously there is a further risk to the fighter, as a creature that travels from under 20 feet may avoid the set spear and attack with no response, as the fighter had declared their set spear action for that round. The fighter's lance attack is more straightforward, in that it is an attack carried out with a lance from a steed. This doesn't have to be a horse, which must have charged more than 20 feet or more. On a successful hit, which would be resolved in the standard melee combat phase, the lance does double damage plus any strength or magical adjustments. As I'm relaying this to you, I'm conscious I'm referring to combat phases and such. If you would like more clarity about what this means, then please watch my BECMI combat video available from the link on the screen and in the description. We'll come back to fighter combat options later as Fleetwood goes up the levels. For now, let's record them on the sheet and move on to skills. Each character starts with a minimum of 4 skills, plus a character's intelligence adjustment. Fleetwood's intelligence adjustment is 1, so he starts with 5. An extra skill is obtained for every 4 levels a character gains. We'll see how this works as Fleetwood climbs up the levels. In the meantime, he chooses Bravery, Blind Shooting, Cheating, Intimidation, and Survival Forest, and we'll record these on the sheet along with their relevant ability score value, which must be rolled equal to or under to succeed in a skill check. Okay, it's time to jump into Weapon Mastery. Of course, Fleetwood is only a first level fighter, but when using the Weapon Mastery system, each character starts with a basic mastery in a number of weapons, and are unskilled in the rest. What being unskilled means is that your ability to do significant damage with a weapon is reduced, and this is represented in the rules as just doing half damage with that weapon. There is a further effect when using missile weapons unskilled, which is that a -1 to hit is also applied. As you can see in this table, fighters have more opportunity to improve their mastery from basic than any other class, and they start with a basic knowledge of 4 weapons. That's double the number of any other human class. He chooses the two-handed sword, the spear, he wants to take advantage of that set spear to charge ability after all, the normal sword, he may want to diversify here and there, and the short bow. We'll record these in the Weapon Mastery section here, along with the stats associated with just having a basic skill. As you can see here, Fleetwood may attempt to improve his expertise with these weapons approximately every 3rd level, or he may just elect to have a basic skill in a new weapon, depending on his adventuring needs. If Fleetwood makes it to 36th level, he may in fact gain 11 further weapon mastery increases beyond the 4 weapons he already has a basic mastery of. I'll explore the effects of weapon mastery later in the video as it impacts Fleetwood's ability to hit things and what that might mean to his combat effectiveness. I'm not going to delve into equipping my character or determining their wealth, as it won't really add to the information I'm trying to relay here. So that's Fleetwood the Fallen, our first level fighter. Fleetwood sets off into the wilderness, defeating enemies and accumulating wealth. His renown grows, but so does his infamy. It's well known that Fleetwood the Fallen is a treacherous sort and keeps questionable company, a behaviour that steers his future choices. So Fleetwood the Fallen has returned to his hometown of Threshold as a 12th level fighter with 600,000 experience points. He sits alone in a tavern and its customers give the fighter a wide berth due to the rumours that surround him. Let's have a look at Fleetwood's character sheet to see what's changed. First, let's look at his saving throws. As Fleetwood is now 12th level, we can refer to the correct numbers on this table and copy them to the sheet, like so. Next, we'll update his hit roll chart, again consulting with the numbers appropriate to his level and updating them on his sheet. When we account for Fleetwood's strength adjustment for melee and his dexterity adjustment for missile, his THAC0 drops to 10 and 12 respectively. This is, of course, without taking into consideration weapon mastery progress, which I will come on to. The last thing we need to update on this part of the character sheet is Fleetwood's hit points, by consulting the fighter's hit dice information again. As you can see, Fleetwood gets 1d8 hit points per level up to 9th level, and he may apply his constitution adjustment to this total. However, as he is now 12th level, he does not roll a hit dice for levels 10 to 12, and he also does not get any constitution adjustments for levels 10 to 12 either, instead only getting +2 hit points for every level above 9th. I roll 8d8 for Fleetwood, adding another 16 for 8 levels worth of constitution adjustments, getting a total of 61. Adding the 2 hit points for each level beyond 9th is a further 6 hit points, making 67. Adding this to Fleetwood's current 10 hit points makes a grand total of 77 hit points at 12th level. Not bad. Let's update the hit points on the sheet here. Now let's turn the character sheet over again and update the items there. Let's focus on Fleetwood's fighter combat options first. At 9th level, Fleetwood gained 3 more fighter combat options. These are Disarm, Parry, and Smash. Let's take a closer look at what each of these does. Disarm literally enables a fighter to disarm an opponent wielding a physical weapon. The fighter rolls to hit their opponent, but if successful, does not do any damage, instead forcing their opponent to check if they're disarmed. This is resolved by the opponent rolling 1d20, subtracting their dexterity adjustment, and then adding the fighter's dexterity adjustment to obtain a total. If this total is greater than the opponent's dexterity score, then that opponent has been disarmed, and the weapon falls harmlessly to the ground. The parry option allows a fighter to forego his attack to cause a -4 penalty on all melee and thrown weapon attacks made against him for an entire combat round. This parry ability has no effect on missile weapons, presumably due to the speed and visibility of that type of attack. The smash option is particularly deadly. A fighter utilizing this option forgoes their initiative and gains a -5 penalty to their hit roll. A successful hit results in the fighter's entire strength score being added to the regular damage that would have been incurred. So in the case of Fleetwood, he could add another 18 points of damage to a successful hit. Ouch. Okay, so let's make a note of what these options do on Fleetwood's character sheet. However, as Fleetwood is now 12th level, he also gains the ability to use multiple attacks. So how does this work? Well, pretty simply actually. Anytime a fighter can hit an opponent with a roll of 2 on a d20, after all ability and magical adjustments have been applied, they may use the multiple attack option. A fighter can make 2 attacks per round at 12th level, 3 attacks per round at 24th level, and 4 attacks per round at 36th level. However, what's important to note when using the multiple attack option is how attack maneuvers are categorized. For instance, in the rules there is a distinction between attack, which is a straightforward hand-to-hand attack, and other forms of attack, such as throw, lance attack, and fire. By the way, I'm in the camp where fire should actually be loose, but that's another subject altogether for another day. So this also means that attack and set spear versus charge are separate maneuvers. All of this is important because when a fighter is allowed to make multiple attacks, it is described as only being allowed for a throw, attack, lance attack, or disarm maneuver. Disarm being the number of opponents you may disarm in one round. This means that if you have set your spear versus a charge, you would only be allowed to use a single attack against that foe. Also, you will note that multiple attacks are not available when using missile weapons, which uses the fire combat maneuver. It's worth noting that a fighter can mix and match these maneuvers as necessary, and if they have available multiple attacks. So that's multiple attacks. Let's put more info about them on the sheet, and we'll refer back to this as Fleetwood develops. Okay, let's have a quick look at skills. Fleetwood gains another skill for levels 5 and 9, so chooses Stealth, Forest, and Tracking, adding the relevant ability score total as well for the check. Let's move on to Weapon Mastery. So according to this table, Fleetwood had 4 more weapon choices by the time he reached 11th level, with his next choice coming at 15th. Therefore, I'm going to say that he improved his two-handed sword and spear mastery with 2 of each of these 4 choices. For the sake of this example, we will assume each attempt was successful, and now he is an expert in both weapons. Let's put the numbers on the sheet. Fleetwood is turning out to be one scary fellow. Now, there's one more thing we have to look at. There's a reason the folk at Threshold fear Fleetwood the Fallen. When a fighter reaches 9th level, he should decide whether to continue as a land-owning fighter, carving out a dominion for a greater lord or seeking lands for the taking, or he can elect to become what's referred to as a travelling fighter. Fleetwood the Fallen chose to become a travelling fighter. He follows no law but his own, and even that changes from one day to the next. So what options are available to him as a travelling fighter? The rules state that the alignment of a travelling fighter determines what special abilities they might receive. The options are to become a Paladin, a Knight, or an Avenger. So what are these special abilities? Well, to become a Paladin, you must be lawful and swear fealty to a lawful clerical order, which you could be summoned to serve at any time. A Paladin can detect evil in the same way as the clerical spell, but once per round and to a range of 120 feet. If a Paladin has a wisdom of 13 or greater, they may cast clerical spells, as if being a cleric 1/3 of their actual level, so a 12th level fighter could cast clerical spells as a 4th level cleric. Also, a Paladin can turn undead as a cleric 1/3 their level, and a Paladin may have a number of hirelings up to their clerical level, so 4 in the example of the 12th level fighter. Finally, a Paladin must assist those who require help, except if they are evil, or the Paladin has a more critical mission. This help is never in the form of donations and must be for a period of service, however short. Obviously, the Paladin is a character fighting for good in a bad world. Putting aside that Fleetwood is not lawful, this doesn't sound like him at all. Let's look at the Knight. The knight is usually neutral, but can be for lawful or chaotic fighters that do not wish to become paladins or avengers. A knight must swear fealty to a ruler, such as a king, and that person becomes the knight's liege. A knight must serve their liege whenever summoned. If this summoning is refused, the knight immediately loses 3 levels and may be sought for justice by their liege. A knight may visit any castle of any territory and seek sanctuary for up to 3 days, where he must be fed and watered as per the local customs. This is a rather Eurocentric tradition, but fits with the stereotypical image of the knight. Whenever there is a call to arms, the knight must respond and fight for his land. Once call to arms services have been provided, the knight has a right to demand a gift, if they wish. This can take any form a DM may desire. Clearly the knight is a character with a strong affiliation to his land and home, someone who will fight to the death for it. Fleetwood would be good at this, but he serves no one but himself. So let's now look at the Avenger. The Avenger must be chaotic, and enters into what's described as a loose agreement of loyalty and support for a clerical order that's chaotic, and they must serve them or lose their Avenger powers. An Avenger can also detect evil as the clerical spell, up to 120 feet and once per round. Like a Paladin, an Avenger may also cast clerical spells as if 1/3 their level, if their wisdom is 13 or over. And also like the Paladin, an Avenger may turn undead as if a cleric of 1/3 their level. However, the Avenger has one crucial difference on this, not even available to chaotic clerics in the rules as written, and that's if an Avenger may turn or destroy an undead type, they may choose to control them instead, lasting up to their character level in turns. So a 12th level fighter, or Avenger in this case, could control a number of undead for up to 12 turns, or 2 hours. Controlled undead behave in the same way as being charmed. Enormously powerful when you think about it. I mean, it's not like an undead creature would refuse to do the most heinous of things. Once the control ends, the undead will flee from the Avenger, meaning they are safe from immediate repercussions. An Avenger may not have hirelings in the same way as a Paladin, but may persuade monsters of chaotic alignment to become their hireling with promises of food or treasure. They may have a number of monster hirelings up to what their charisma score allows. Interestingly, an Avenger may demand sanctuary from any intelligent chaotic monster or character at their castle, ruin, dungeon, etc. They may also try to obtain the same type of sanctuary available to knights if they are able to deceive the rulers of those domains. Okay, this looks right up Fleetwood Street. Fleetwood has sought out a chaotic clerical order called the Anti-Threshold League and makes a pact with them to drive forward their unscrupulous aims. So this means we need to add some more information to Fleetwood's character sheet, so I'm going to need a 3rd page. Here we go. We're going to need some turn undead information on here, but I'll include the word control as well, and we'll also need some spell information. I'll stick a note in the top right about the abilities of the Avenger, just to remind the player of what can be done when playing this character. As for that space in the bottom, I'm going to utilise it to support the need to manage the use of multiple attacks for the different weaponry Fleetwood uses. I'll show how in a moment. For now, let's insert the turn undead information for an Avenger, which is 1/3 Fleetwood's level, so that's as a 4th level cleric, and also the number of clerical spells he may memorise per day at that level. Right, Fleetwood's ability with weaponry differs due to his focus on mastering the two-handed sword and the spear. To avoid having to do mental arithmetic every time he enters combat, we'll populate the weapon hit roll table to take into account the type of weapon being used and the level of mastery. As you can see, when using his two-handed sword against a primary opponent, after modifiers have been applied, Fleetwood needs a 2 to hit an armor class of 9 through to 4. The requirement to only roll a 1 to hit armor class 9 means that, after all modifiers have been applied, such as cover or invisibility, a total of 1 can still hit, as long as a natural 1 is not rolled. So when it comes to multiple attacks, Fleetwood the Fallen, being 12th level, has 2 attacks against any foe with an armor class of 9 through to 4 when attacking with his two-handed sword against primary opponents. If you don't know what I mean by primary or secondary opponents, it's a weapon mastery term, and I suggest you watch my video on weapon mastery in my examination of the master rules, link on the screen and in the description. Looking down this hit roll table, we can see where the ability to hit something with a 2 changes, and so the ability to use multiple attacks also changes. In short, as long as you can hit with a modified roll of at least 2, and the attack type falls within the scope of those allowed for multiple attacks, as we have covered earlier, then you may get 2, 3, or 4 attacks per round, depending on your level. Okay, so that's Fleetwood the Fallen as a 12th level Avenger. After a lengthy career of terrorizing the communities of the Grand Duchy of Garamakos, cutting some deals with the Black Eagle Barony and becoming a key leader of the Iron Ring Slavers, Fleetwood the Fallen is now 36th level. He's not bothered about attaining immortality, he relishes every moment of this world, and he's cut a deal with the chaotic clerics he serves to be raised should the need arise. Immortality is for wimps. So let's take a look at 36th level Fleetwood and admire his power. We can see that his final hit points reached 101, quite a lot for a BECMI fighter, but still much lower than might be seen in a modern version of the Dungeons and Dragons game. We can also see that all his saving throws have a value of 2, meaning Fleetwood has a 95% chance to make any saving throw. As for his hit roll chart, the numbers with the dagger symbol next to them mean that on a hit, that number is added to the damage. We'll see how this affects things further when we get back to the weapon's hit roll chart. Fleetwood has gained 6 more skill points, but instead of gaining more skills, he has improved 2 of the ones he has, increasing his stealth from 13 to 17 and his tracking from 13 to 15. In terms of weapon mastery, Fleetwood has used his 7 remaining slots to attain Grand Mastery of the two-handed sword and the spear, and he has also attained Mastery of the normal sword. Remember though, apart from these weapons and the short bow, he is unskilled in all other weapons, so does only half damage with them. Moving on to Fleetwood's Avenger abilities, he is now able to automatically control vampires, and even phantoms. How cool is that? He is also able to raise the dead with his access to high-level clerical spells. Let's have a final look at that weapon hit roll chart. As you can see, the dagger symbol is everywhere here, meaning this amount is added to the damage of an attack if a natural 1 is not rolled, and this isn't even accounting for Fleetwood having a magical weapon. Fleetwood gets 4 attacks per round with all his weapons, apart from the short bow, as that is out of scope for multiple attacks. So for a final flourish, let's quickly demonstrate Fleetwood's damage output. If Fleetwood was to attack a dragon with an armor class of 0 with his two-handed sword, he would get 4 attacks per round, and 10 would be added to the damage for each successful blow. Assuming they all hit, and he achieves maximum damage, that would mean a total of 148 hit points of damage in one round. And that's before he sets his vampires on you. Fleetwood is not someone you'd want to mess with. So there you have it, Fleetwood the Fallen, a chaotic Avenger of awesomeness. Well, that's been an even more extensive second episode of Let's Roll. I had naively thought that a video about the fighter would be quite short, but re-examining this class has brought back so many things, and it is quite simply an awesome character class, especially if you want to have some fun going the Avenger route. It would be great to learn your own experiences of the BECMI fighter, and even some of your comparisons with fighters from later editions, in terms of whether your enjoyment of the class has improved or worsened. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this second episode of Let's Roll. Please give it a like if you did indeed like it, and please hit the subscribe button if I've earned your future attention. If you'd like to thank me further, you can buy me a coffee, link on the screen or in the description. Otherwise, I'm BECMI Berserker. Keep making your saving throws, and I hope to see you back here soon.